You're listening to From the Chair, and I'm your host, Mike Hamilton. Join us each episode as we talk to athletic directors from across America. We're going to talk about topics like leadership, career development, issues of the day, and I can promise you we're going to have some fun along the way too. So sit back, listen in, and let's dive in. Let's go. All right, welcome into today's episode. Our guest today is Oral Roberts University Athletic Director Tim Johnson. Tim, how are you doing, man?
Mike, man, it's great to be here. Honestly, I'm still a little upset with you. You know, we saw each other in Nashville, and you had a ticket to the Elton John concert. You didn't have me one, so I didn't know what was going on there.
Hey, it was either you or my wife, right? So you lost out. You lost out on that one.
I lost that. I couldn't scalp one either.
Great concert. This is a great city for music, man, for sure. But it was great to have you here for the Cowls event a couple weeks ago, and always good to spend some time with you. And certainly we'll get together and break bread somewhere soon. I can promise you, right? So, hey, look, man, I want to talk to you about you've been in athletics for a long time, and obviously last year we're named the athletic director at Oral Roberts and are doing a great job there. And I know you've got a lot of plans for what the future looks like for the university. But I want to start by talking about somebody who is near and dear to your heart and someone who I have great admiration for. And I know that he had a huge impact on your growth in athletics and the ability you've had to continue to move up in your career and helping you form who you are as an athletic director today. And that's Terry Don Phillips. And Terry Don, obviously long career, Arkansas, was the AD at Oklahoma State, the AD at Clemson, and certainly retired a few years ago with an incredible history. So I know he means a lot to you. So let's come off the top and talk a little bit about your relationship with Terry Don, how let's start with just how you guys met and then how your time with him evolved and how he served as a mentor to you.
Well, I'm glad you're asking that question. I love talking about Terry Don. He's got to be the foundation of really my entire belief mindset. Obviously, what I do in athletics, Terry Don's a huge part of that. So, I went to Oklahoma State. I'm from Oklahoma, had these big plans of playing ball and all that. And then through kind of happenstance, my dad ended up meeting a guy who they worked with when they were 16 years old at Safeway in Tulsa. And he knew a guy who introduced me to Coach Houston Nutt. And I always wanted to be an athletic director, always wanted to be in this business for as long as I can remember. So this individual said, man, you got to get back into football. And so I transferred to Arkansas to be on the football staff with Coach Nutt. And that same individual, though, introduced me to Terry Don Phillips. So the same year that I transferred to Arkansas to kind of start working with Coach Nutt, I went out in the summer and met Terry Don. And I remember I went out there just, you're just kind of taking a chance, right? This guy's going to introduce you. You're taking a chance. You go out there. I've got probably 4 or 5 days of clothes, and I think I was out there over a month, just that first year. So stayed in Terry Don's garage apartment. Mike, maybe you've stayed in there before, but Terry Don's garage apartment, man, was one of where I lived practically every summer coming up in this business.
That's fantastic. Yeah. So eventually Terry Don ends up at Clemson, and I think that was 2002 maybe. Somewhere along that time frame, if I recall correctly. And certainly this was not long after the tragic plane crash there at Oklahoma State. And Terry walked the university through that devastating time and then felt like he needed to sort of take a turn into a new chapter. And the opportunity at Clemson came up. And so when did you join him in Clemson?
So I went out there. It's kind of funny. We were at Oklahoma State at the same time, didn't know each other, though, at the time. So we both left at the same time. And then that summer I went out there when he started beginning what Clemson was going to look like under the new leadership, under what he was going to do, the different facilities we were going to start. And then so I would do the football thing at Arkansas over the year. And then at the summer, go out there and that would be part of the work I would do under Terry Don. So, and then I went out there full time, I think around the 2009, 10-ish, somewhere around there is when he brought me out there full time.
So at that point, you're then making the pivot from football into administration. You clearly knew that, or you were more inclined to, hey, this is a guy that I want to work with and be around, and let's see where it takes me. What was the impetus of that decision?
Well, I always knew it. Mike, I always knew I wanted to be into administration. Talking to Terry Don, that was the similar career path he had taken. on the coaching side of thing, on the football side of it, before he transitioned into his administration career at Florida. And so when the time came, you said you're going to talk about how how getting your law degree and going to law school helps being an athletic director. He's the whole reason I went to law school. So he suggested that I go, and after I got out is when I went to Clemson and started working for him, and knew that he was going to be. Obviously, he was one of my biggest mentors, if not the biggest influence in my life outside of my family, still is. And so to be able to go out there and start my career administratively under him was, it was just everything I could hope for at the time.
So I know you were sort of a utility player in many ways, because you played a lot of different roles while you're at Clemson, but focus on football, facilities plan, those kind of things. Share a little bit about the different opportunities that he gave you in terms of getting broad-based experience while you were there on campus.
Well, we kind of laugh looking back at it now, because Terry Don gave me so much. When I think of Terry Don, I really think of loyalty, opportunity, and really taught me how to drive home and create a vision. So when I got out there, I didn't have the term deputy AD or anything like that, and I just kind of became his right-hand man, to where he's giving me all kinds of stuff. And I'm almost thinking, I can't believe he's giving me this to do. I mean, we did everything from strategic planning to what the facilities were going to be, to building Clemson football under Dabo Swinney and hiring staff and building a culture and what that was going to look like, and the struggles we had in the beginning, to building Clemson soccer. It's funny, those two programs have now won national titles. So it's great to see the success continue, and really just get there and see how Terry Don did things. I think he's a legend in the game. I think a lot of us do. He's an old school guy, but had a lot of new mentality that I learned from. And again, just getting in there, having him prepare me. I taught a sports law class with Terry Don as well. And, Mike, preparing for that class is when we had a lot of our discussions on what we were doing and what it was going to look like. And he used to say, those things. Now, when you're running your own shop, make sure you do this type of thing. And so, those are the looking back at your career, that you really cherish those moments when you get to spend, when you find somebody who's really pouring into you and is really investing time in you and honestly giving you responsibility that's going to make your career. Looking back, it was just a great, great time at Clemson. Love Clemson, love being there under Terry Don, and loving just, again, learning how to drive home and create a vision and have people really buy into it.
So, obviously this was Terry Don's decision because he was the athletic director, but in 2008, Coach Bowden leaves, is relieved of his duties, and then Dabo is ultimately named the head coach. And you've got a guy who we all know his energy. We see that in today's world. We've seen his success. He's growing success over the years. But at the time, he was a wide receivers coach and had never been a coordinator, and has handed the reins of a program that had the most success in ACC history and had a previous national championship. Thinking back to those days, now almost 15 years ago, what do you, from having worked alongside that staff and having known Dabo during that time, what do you think Terry Don saw there that said, this is the guy? Because candidly, I know some of the folks that Terry Don had talked to during that time, and he talked to a number of people, but ultimately he landed on, staying with Dabo. And there are, for some, that was a head scratcher moment, right? Now it's proven to be absolutely genius. And if you play it forward over these past 15 years, but I'm interested on your perspective of, as you were able to sit and kind of watch all that transpire, what your analysis of that would have been.
So at the time, if you remember, Mike, now you went to Clemson, so you're going to know this really well, or at least you're able to remember it. You remember the term Clemsoning, right? So we had this term where, ESPN would use it to describe other teams blowing games or not being able to get to the top on SportsCenter and different things like that. And so we really needed someone who was going to rally the troops and bring a different kind of belief. And there's a story I love about Terry Don that was at Oklahoma State that I think maybe informed a little bit of this. And you remember what Oklahoma State football was like when Terry Don was there. When I was there, we still had the erector set stadium. There wasn't any resources put into the athletic department as far as football, some of the bigger ticket items. And so I remember there was this big campaign he started that was Believe It campaign. And I remember I didn't know him at the time, right? I'm walking to class and I see this Believe It bumper sticker on this dumpster as I'm walking to class, and someone had written on the sticker, "I'll believe it when I see it."
Yeah.
right? And so you've got this mindset, and that's what you fight sometimes as you're building these programs, is making the people inside the building believe. And so I think there were things that Dabo showed that really were things that made you draw yourself to what his skills were going to be. So Dabo, one, nobody has ever been able to, at least in my opinion that I've come across, focus on the why like Coach Swinney can. I mean, before he's even getting into what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, he's able to motivate you with the why, with why we're all there, why you're there. And you might not even know he's doing it, right? And so, and he does it in such an authentic way that we used to laugh. I mean, I think his office was like Dr. Phil, right? I mean, one of the things that Terry Don would say that was most impressive is, you know, in football, you kind of get to know your position coach and the guy who recruited you the most. Well, everybody was in Coach Swinney's office. So everybody's in Dabo's office. He's able to talk to not only the wide receivers, he was talking to all positions. Obviously, he was a phenomenal recruiter, right? I mean, it's about the Jimmies and Joes versus X's and O's. That's kind of what we're doing here a little bit that we can talk about later, but it's so important, the recruiting aspect of it. So just being authentic, the way he could rally around with his belief. And I think the belief that Dabo had tied in a little bit to that Believe It campaign, knowing that, hey, you know, we're in a position where we feel like we've had historic success. We feel like we can give the resources in here, particularly when it comes to personnel and recruiting, where we can be successful. But who's going to really be that culture bearer, who's going to shine that vision out, who's going to make people believe it, so to speak, and build it from the inside out. Make sure that from the inside we're believing we can win. And then it's going to start facilitating its way to all the other constituents, donors, everybody in the state. And obviously the rest is history. But again, he was able to do that unlike anybody I've ever seen as far as in this coaching business.
Special guy. You know, you can go back and I did an interview with Greg Byrne this summer and one with Graham Neff this summer. And in each of those two interviews, we talked specifically about the success of Nick Saban and the success of Dabo Swinney. You know, many people see those guys as doing things different ways, but accomplishing unbelievable success. And the reality is there are also some principles that both of them share, even though it appears different publicly in terms of their personality and approach. So to be able to work around somebody like that and to see, I just think it's, you know, you're at the end of the day, Tim, you know this. I mean, there are a lot of things that ADs are judged by, but one of the things that the public tends to judge you by are your hires. And so to have had not only that, but all the other chances you've had through the years now to be part of coaching decisions and hires, that's one that just really worked out. And it's an inexact science, to be clear, right? But I know that you guys saw the what was behind the scenes there and had a value judgment on how that could be successful. And by the way, the culture wasn't bad there, right? It was just making sure that you took it to the next level. So.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Coach Bowden had done a phenomenal job. You try to take it to the next level, what everybody wanted to do, and get past that, again, that Clemsoning mindset, right? We're all trying to reach the goal. I mean, the pinnacle of it. And so how are you going to do that? How are you going to get past that mindset that we can reach the highest level like we did before, right? Similar to ORU, you know, when I got here, it was a situation where we had some programs that were down, had some prior success, had a little bit of complacency, but we're really trying to bring back that former fire and reach the mountaintop that we had before. And so it's obvious that it could be done before. We just had to bring it back.
Yeah, so let's transition to that time. After Terry Dunn retired, you actually ended up coming back to the state of Oklahoma and took the job there as deputy AD at Oral Roberts under Mike Carter. And those who've been around college athletics for a long time know that Mike, gosh, I don't know, 26, 27 years maybe at Oral Roberts. Does that sound approximate?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you know, in storied history at Oral Roberts in a number of sports, a lot of folks, you know, look through the lens of basketball when you talk about Oral Roberts, but baseball, soccer, et cetera. Why was that the right next move for you?
You know, when Terry Don retired, I knew that in this business, it's kind of a nomad life, so to speak, sometimes, and you want to look around at what might be your next opportunity. When this one had come open, talked to Terry Don about it, and remember thinking, you know, you want to be somewhere where people care about athletics, where there's going to be the resources that you might need, and that where there's the chance to have success, right? And this was one where there had been historical success. It's kind of a unique place because we're the second Division I program in a single city, right? It's a big city, but it's not that big to have two Division I programs. So I knew it was going to take some work. And then also it was an opportunity where this is probably an anomaly in this business, but it was going to be an opportunity where there was going to be a long transition where Mike knew he was going to retire. I knew I was going to take over. We were able to do that. And I think a really unique way that you don't see that really lent its way to being extremely stable when it did happen. And when we were kind of carrying the torch together, hiring, working on hiring people that we wanted to hire, a lot of the things that I was going to do anyway, I was able to do before I was actually given the position. So we were able to, really hit the ground running and take advantage of a lot of the momentum we have. So it was a really unique experience as far as being able to come here and work knowing that that's what you're working to. Kind of gives you a little bit of a different momentum. You get a little bit of a different voice in the building, when people know that's coming up. So we were able to do a lot of that. And again, do some things that really got us ahead of the curve that we're really now taking advantage of.
Well, and kudos to you and Mike both, Tim, because the reality is, that a lot of schools, there's this supposed transition from one generation to the next, or an AD to a deputy AD that appears that it's going to happen over time. And a lot of times the AD ends up staying longer, or it just doesn't work out. So it's credit to you and to him that you guys were able to both set your egos aside and say, what can we do that's best for Oral Roberts? And I know you took a significant lead in some facilities projects and fundraising and working with the coaches. And even when I was out there before you became athletic director, it was clear that he was giving you a lot of latitude to continue to make an impact, a true impact on the athletic program. And so when you actually were named athletic director, if I recall correctly, it was right around the time you guys went on the NCAA run. Is that right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it was practically right during the middle of it. Yeah.
So what a neat time to transition into the role and be able to be a part of that for sure. So look, here's the thing. Oral Roberts has had a lot of success historically. I would say, outsider looking in, coming and visiting you, you're like, okay, success. Some pretty decent facilities, but it's time to sort of upgrade, put some new paint on places, maybe build the next great thing for basketball practice or your athletic center or whatever. And those plans were laid in place, and now you're executing on all that. The thing I want to talk to you is about executing your vision for where you're going to want to take the athletic program going forward. That's one thing, and you can combine these if you want. But then the other thing is maintaining or growing what you believe success can be at a place that has had success, but not resting on your laurels, right? But growing a culture and growing a program in a place that candidly is not going to have the highest budget, but yet you have some pretty high expectations relative to some of the sports that have had success. Love to hear your thoughts on all of that.
So I think, coming here, honestly, the situation was almost similar to Clemson, right? It's all relative, but now you're looking at Clemson now, it's kind of a juggernaut. At the time we were building it, I think we were sixth in the ACC in budget. We were still rolling out the seat equity program. There were different things we were doing to catch up and modernize the athletic department. And that's in the situation we were at here too, as we came in, where we were budget-wise, how we were going to continue to open up new revenue opportunities to grow that revenue. And then similar, the strategy was, okay, look, at Clemson, we really wanted to get the football program in a situation where it is doing it's succeeding at an extremely high level. And of course, as you know, the thought was, now that rising tide is going to lift all boats, right? It's going to give us the opportunity to get donors involved. It's going to give us the opportunity to improve what we're paying in salaries, all the other facilities that we have going. And the rest is the history, or you've seen the rest is history at Clemson. And we're seeing that here. So when we got here, we said, okay, we really want to pour into the basketball program, make this a program that is succeeding at a high level. And then, the other thing that I think Terry Don really taught me is you got to always be prepared, right? So when you're setting up these visions, when you're setting up what your facility master plan is going to be, you've got to be prepared. So the story he used to tell me was, I think this is 1994. They're coming off of winning the men's basketball championship at Arkansas. And Bud Walton keeps calling Coach Broyles and wants to meet with him. Right. And Coach Broyles has something going on. And Terry Don's head of the Razorback Foundation right now. And he keeps saying, Coach, you're going to want to meet with Bud Walton here. We got to meet with him. And then finally he says, okay, well, set up the meeting and if I need you in there. So he sets up the meeting. He gets him in there. Bud Walton comes in, sits on the couch and says, now, Coach, we just won the national title. and they were playing an old Barnhill at this point before
Yep.
the Walton, Bud Walton had been built. And he says, "Now, have you ever given thought to a new arena?" And Terry Don says, "Now, we had never even thought about a new arena at this point in time." But Coach Broyles, as you know, as legendary as he is, says, "Why, yes, we've thought about a new arena. We've looked into it, and we think it's a great idea." And Bud says, "Well, how much is it going to cost?" And, Terry Don said he could tell that Coach Broyles had no idea. And I don't remember what the exact numbers are, but he said something like, "It's going to cost 30." Bud stood up and said, "Put me down for half," and walked out of the room. And Coach Broyles slammed his desk and said, "I should have said 50."
Yeah.
So that kind of story really sank in with me. And so when we were here looking at what we could do to really move our program ahead, we had this vision for this athletic center. And so this is something that I really got inspired by, just going to a local company's mortgage Christmas party, right? We're walking to their brand new building and we're looking at it and it looks great. And I'm thinking, boy, we could do this and do this. And so we start drawing it out and planning it out. And I remember showing Mike, he likes to tell this story too now, showing Mike, said, "Mike, look at this building. I think we could do this. Is you think this is a pipe dream?" And Mike laughed and he goes, "Yeah, it's a definite pipe dream." So it's funny, but you have that in your file, right? I mean, you've kind of done all the prep. You know what the vision is going to be, how you're going to start building this thing. Obviously, culture is one aspect of it. But as we're going through that Sweet 16 run and getting everybody all jacked up and then letting everybody see what's possible at ORU, I think it was the Florida game. We're sitting there and one of our biggest donors walks up and says, "Hey, you guys have represented the university so well. You've done such a good job. Everybody's excited. What can I do for the university? What can I do for the athletic department?" Well, I remember hitting the president saying, "I know exactly what you can do for that." You're throwing it out there. And before you know it, that pipe dream's a reality, right? Just because you had the vision, you were prepared, you knew what levers you thought you could pull to really make a splash here at the mid-major level. And so it's exciting to see the facilities take part. And again, that facility is going to help all of our 300 student athletes. So it's going to have a brand new strength and conditioning center in it, brand new academic center in it, team meeting room, things that ORU, quite frankly, has never had before, right? Like our strength and conditioning center right now is 1,500 square feet with really old equipment in it. It's our biggest need. And now we're going to have basically the same weight room Alabama football has. So when you're looking at that type of thing and how it can impact your student athletes and the experience, those are lessons that you just learn from your different places along the way, from your mentors. You put them in the filing cabinet so that you can, when that chance does come, you can create the vision yourself, sell it, be persuasive, and then pull those levers like we talked about and really hit the ground and make a quantum leap for the athletic department.
So, you mentioned the notion of someone talking to you about what they could do to be helpful during the middle of the Sweet 16 run. What have been the other outcomes of that in terms of like your season ticket growth, the growth in donor contributions, engagement in the community? Has it helped other sports in your athletic program? Interested how you leverage that towards helping your program grow.
The Tulsa World-Her, which is our local paper and probably the biggest in Oklahoma, gave us probably the biggest compliment we could ever get, our staff. As we were going through that run, he put something in the paper about, basically saying, "Hey, this is one of the most phenomenal runs we've ever seen. I hope this athletic department can take advantage of it." And then I think it was about a month later, the title was, "I've never seen an athletic department take more advantage of a situation and an opportunity that Oral Roberts did." And so you're right. I mean, we had begun building our infrastructure with tickets. Well, we changed how we do sports information to athletic communications, modernizing some of those things, content creation. We had it all in place at the right time to take advantage of that opportunity. And some of the things we saw, we were able to raise almost $30 million instantly in facilities. And we're in the process of a $100 million facility campaign on the university side. It helped them immensely. People are excited about the university. I think that 3-week run, Mike, we saw something of a 400% increase in requests for information. I think applications were up almost 200%. We had the second highest incoming class last year. The best this year was the largest. So we think actually the Sweet 16 run helped us this year more than it did last year. We trended twice, I think 2 or 3 times, number one on Twitter, social media wise. And so the numbers go on and on and on. In fact, they were at a point where we thought, hey, this is a situation where we don't want to tell people this because they might think we're not even telling the truth. So we brought in some independent consultants who came in and said, man, they're verifying all these numbers. They're showing us. I think the media reach was over 350 million individual unique people around the globe learned about who ORU is and what we're doing. And then the good thing is, in our industry, we're always preaching to our presidents, to our board, what the athletic department can do for the university. Well, now we have become a case study to see what it can do. And now you talk about leadership, alignment, different things like that. Everybody's all jacked up. They're all excited. They want to be the next Gonzaga, so to speak, as far as what ORU can do. And, of course, our vision is we want to be the next ORU, right? I mean, what we really want to do is in 5 years, people are looking back and they're studying what happened at ORU. How did ORU do it? How were they able to take advantage of that from the facility standpoint to keeping their coaches, the continuity in staff that has led to the strong culture that we have, the continued success with, like you said, honestly, we don't have the biggest budget. So what are the things we can do to compete nationally and continue to be on that stage with the things that we have? It's been a wild ride, and it's been really exciting, Mike.
So let's go back and put a pin in the athletic center for a second. That's not complete just yet, right? Still under construction?
Still under construction. So far, knock on wood, haven't been any delays. We were lucky to get a lot of the big orders in before this recent round of inflation hit as far as steel and all that. So we're looking about a February to early March opening of that building.
Okay. And as part of the result of that, I guess, is also you're doing some backfill renovations or work in the Mabee Center as well. Is that correct?
So we were able to basically, I think, again, going back to history and how your career kind of unfolds. I think another thing, growing some of these programs, being at Arkansas when we didn't have the biggest budget either at the time, football, and Clemson, is you really learn how to be efficient with how you spend dollars. And how are those dollars going to really impact the student athlete experience, the donor experience, and the fan experience. So we have this big, arena that is a phenomenal arena. The bones of this arena, when it was built, are well beyond its years. And I think everybody who has seen it agrees that it's one of the most comfortable buildings to watch a game as well. So we looked at this arena as part of the renovation process and said, how can we retrofit this arena to make it almost similar to what you did, although we're balling on a budget when you were at Tennessee, and improve some of these things that the players are going to see and the fans are going to see. So we take, this is multi-million dollar, $10, $12 million renovation that we're renovating. And then if you walked into this building today, you would think it's a brand new building from the outside, the inside, and you pick and choose what's most important. We didn't renovate the underground concourse, which saved us a lot of money, to renovate the top concourse, which is where the fans are, where our donors sit, built new suites, built new premium areas that obviously are going to bring us new revenue, and then continually renovating the player space and where they are, where the locker rooms are, where the sports medicine is going to go, locker room lounges, all that type of stuff, just to continually create momentum year after year. But you're right, it's the whole project itself has been incredible. And going back to Tulsa World, just again as a recognition of how great our staff has done. They put in an article not too long ago that said they just don't see how any mid-major could have as good as facilities as ORU. And so those are the type of things when you're doing that, you look back, you get your staff together, you're really celebrating those wins of the success that you've been able to have and the programs you've been able to build. It's been a really good renaissance here at ORU.
So Tim, tell me what's your annual athletic budget now?
So we're in the 15 range, when you add in all of our scholarships, and different things like that. I think it's about 15.
And the size of your staff is what size? Ish.
So we have about 90, 95 people in the athletic department.
Yeah. So a little over a year ago, when I did the first interview in this new series from the chair, Ross Bjork was actually the first person we interviewed, and he made the comment in the course of the conversation, he felt like in today's world, it's like there are two different kinds of athletic directors. There's one that has external skill set, fundraising, et cetera, and there's another that he said, you need to be an attorney, right? And so you're sitting here and you've got your law degree, and you have that as a part of your bag of tricks, and then you've obviously had a ton of fundraising expertise and success both at Clemson and at Oral Roberts. So you kind of got the best of the both worlds. And yet you don't have a huge staff. So I'm curious, how are you allocating your personal time among all the different tasks that you have, knowing that you've got a skill set let's call it on the internal, the pragmatic, the black and white work, and then also in the sort of out front, external facing, rubbing elbows, gray area some days, and how you get the money raised, whatever. How are you spending your time allocating towards the success you're trying to have as an athletic director?
That's a great question. And, what's happening in our industry too is the bigger you get, the more niche you can become. And I think as you look at your career progression and coming back here, one of the things Terry Don allowed me to do again, and Mike, was put your finger in all these different pies. And I think one of the best mottos I kind of heard about this was, if you're going to run a factory, you really need to know how to run all the machines. And so you don't want to be a jack of all trades. You need to have something you can really hang your hat on, but you've got to be able to have some institutional knowledge, some industry knowledge, and everything's going on. And you got to have good people, because you can't do everything. You've got to be able to have some people who can handle some things that will come to you when they need you, but they've got it. They're going to be able to handle it, whether it's compliance. Scott Williams does a great job here in our internal side of things. Paul Cavas is on the external. So you've got to hire good people and work with them to allow them to do things, because you're right, at our level, when we don't have the success, or we don't have the budget, we don't have the manpower that everybody else has, we've got to work a little harder, more efficiently, but that doesn't change our goals, right? Our goal is still to compete nationally. Our soccer team's number 16 now in the country. So we've built these different programs, baseball that's been successful. We still want to compete at that highest level, but how are we going to do it? How are we going to be more efficient? And what are the ways we can spend dollars where, we went to Texas A&M this year for baseball in the regionals, competed really well, was really proud of it. I think we were one hit away from winning both of our games, but you walk away going, man, I'm really proud of the way we competed. And you continue to do things and spend those dollars and do things. You got to time manage. This is, again, you asked me a big question here, try to understand how you do something here at a mid-major level, but it's so rewarding, Mike, when you get to do all these different things, see people be successful, see young, we hire a lot of young people, right? A lot of young people that you're building up, you're training, they become successful, they go on and get jobs. So you've got to be able to train, you've got to be able to teach, you've got to be able to fundraise, you've got to be able to be a compliance director at times. And then you've also, nowadays you got to be a sports psychiatrist. You got to be able to build a culture that people are going to buy into. You've got to be able to really dig into what these different programs need, because it's like having 16 different children, right? I mean, all these different programs have their own needs and they're different on the different spectrum as they progress, right? They're all at different spots as you're working with them too. So, man, I'm telling you, it's right. It's a different skill set, but it's the same things. When I was at Clemson, it was the same things we were doing here, just had more zeros behind it as far as what we were doing, how we wanted to be efficient, what we wanted to do, and the kind of people that we wanted to hire and bring around our kids and bring on our staff.
That's awesome. All right, so switch to one personal note as we close out the interview, and that is, you got a young family, and you live in a good town. It's a great city. Tell me what it is that you try to do for time away, but and taking advantage of living in a place like Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Well, I've got two older daughters, and then we finally had a younger son here. So I couldn't believe it. We're still celebrating, still have balloons all over the house that we've got a son here. But, I think a lot of people who are listening to this will really understand what I'm saying here. This is really a lifestyle, right? So my hobby is my family. It is what they want to do. And I got really good advice from Clemson too when I was there, that, if you're going to be in this business, your family really has to be a part of it. Right, that you can't just do the AD thing and then go home to the family later. It's got to be an all-in. We say that a lot here, like we did at Clemson. It's got to be this all-in situation where your family's part of it. They're at the games. They're feeling it with you. They were right by my side at the Sweet 16, feeling all those emotions with you because they live it with you. Right, they live it with you, the good and the bad. And so it's great to have them with you. But here lately, my oldest is now a cheerleader. She's on the pom team. So she had to try out this year. It was big. She made the team. She made All-American. We've got a football game tonight, JV football game. We got to go. I've seen more JV football, Mike, than I've ever seen this year. So I need to get out there and coach again. But, going out there and, again, seeing it's the same things, right? Even from my daughter's pom team, being able to see what they're doing, bring the smiles to them, the experience that they're having. It's great to get out there and get a little release sometime with your family and making sure that you're a part of what they're wanting to do too.
There's no doubt. Look, two things I would say to come in and validate your opinions even further. I do believe you have to approach it as a lifestyle. If you look at it as just a job and you try to have your family be fully integrated into it, it'll drive you crazy. And, my family, it became our social outlet. It became where we had a lot of our meals, a lot of our entertainment, that kind of thing. And, a lot of folks like to use the term work-life balance. I think of somebody somewhere in the middle of this year in one of our interviews that said, that's really a misnomer. It really has to be work-life integration, because there's the balance thing is not something that's really able to be accomplished in athletics. So I know you're working on that every day, man. So, hey, look, man, I appreciate you taking the time to visit with me today. I've enjoyed our friendship as we've gotten to know each other further, and I know we could continue to talk here, but at some point somebody might tune out if we. But thank you for taking the time here over the last 30 or so minutes to visit with me. It's been much appreciated and very informative.
Appreciate Mike. Again, appreciate everything you do for our business. You've been a great friend, great mentor as well. I didn't get a chance to talk about the things that you've done, not only for me, but for our industry. And I just honored to be here and honored to continue to try to move this industry forward.
That's awesome. All right, folks, if you get to Tulsa, Oklahoma, you need to take a stop and take a little bit of time and head out and visit Oral Roberts University, ORU, and visit Tim. I know he'd welcome to have you there and to show you around all the good things that they're doing.
We need basketball games. Nobody will play us. Come play us. We need more basketball games. Come on, somebody play us.
There you go. That's the easy way to come see you, right? Yeah, no doubt. All right, look, folks, it's been Oral Roberts University, ORU Athletic Director Tim Johnson. So glad to have him with us today. You're listening to From the Chair. Listen to us every Wednesday on all your audio podcast platforms, or you can watch us here on the YouTube channel as well. We appreciate you listening. Tell a friend about it, and we'll see you next week.